Welcome everybody here. And what I wanted to talk about is actually that when we were organizing this event, it was our fastest selling out event that we've ever organized. And I think it tells us a very special thing about leadership and management and engineering, that it's a topic we don't talk enough about. And so I hope this might be actually a start of a future series, but we'll get more to that. First of all, I would like to thank our team that helped us organize this. So there's, where do I have them? There's Adela, there's Teresa, there's Zbigniew, there's also Jirka. So thank you. I've not fitted me yet, but thanks for the whole team, and they were a lot in contact with you. I would also like to welcome our special guests, Rija and Rahma. So I always try to get it right so I don't confuse the company name. Rija is a former CTO. She worked at a company called Market Invoice in the UK. Rahma is a director of engineering, if I remember correctly, at Deliveroo. The story actually how we got in touch is I've spent the last 5 years in Berlin, and Delivery Hero was a food delivery startup owning the local Dame-Idlo. And Deliveroo was our competitor, and we were always a little bit envious about some of their products, and especially how they build the rider community. So the moment I left Delivery Hero, I try to reach out and try to find the best people and companies I really respect. I'd also like to welcome Daniel, the CTO of Productboard and co-founder, which will join us in the discussion as well. So let's get started. A few organizational things. I think everybody got beers, drinks. So we're going to be having some food after 8, after the talks. Soft drinks are on us. As far as I know, also beer and wine should be from 8 or maybe already. It's already right now, so okay, even better. And we have a Slido. So the third part of tonight is a discussion, and we're all going to be participating. So feel free to look up the code. It's PB productboard 2811. That's the date of today, and you can submit any questions, and we'll try to go through them. We really have no idea what's going to interest you, so I'm super excited to see. One more thing, I have a different talk than I have on the abstract and the Facebook event. Sorry for that. But I realized I did it because when I was talking about the guest list, there's a very wide array of people here, and maybe I wanted to establish some common ground at the beginning. And I thought, I don't want to do anything beginner, I don't want to define the position, but I took it as a bit of a personal history of how I turned into a manager and what I would have done differently. So what I wish I knew before becoming a manager in technology. Maybe some questions first. Who has people reporting to them right now at this moment? Hands up. About half, a little bit more than a half. Who's thinking to become a manager in the future? Good. Okay, that leaves me with who was a manager and realized it's not a job meant for them. I see some product people here, we should. Nah. No, that's good, and it's also the approach we took to it. We're trying to really figure out how this position should look like. So maybe what I wanted to start off is actually going back, dialing a few years back and talking as an engineer, how I thought about management. And these were the typical things that would go in my mind. Managers are useless. We'd be so much faster without them. They're just stand in our way. If they let me, I could do a better job than them. My boss has no idea what I'm doing. He doesn't understand my work. And obviously, managing people can't be that hard. So I sort of expected my trajectory as a manager to go like this. So that's skill over time. So, you kind of start, you don't know how to code. You learn how to code, you become a junior, mid-level, senior engineer, and then bam, you become an engineering manager or a tech lead. And you kind of continue from there and build on the experience you had. But the reality is, you kind of take you take a lot of steps back, and suddenly in a role you were very senior, and in a role you kind of, you might have had authority, people respected you for what you do. You actually you don't start from the beginning, but you really start as a much more junior person than you'd expect to. So I've also probably a lot of, the Kruger effect. So if not, really Google it. It's a fun read, and you're going to find yourself in it a lot, both on the good sides and the bad sides. And I think it's all about that. When you start off, you have this really high confidence that you know what you're doing, and you kind of understand what's ahead of you. Sorry, I was on a football match yesterday. It was a really bad timing, so I barely can talk. And but I'll get through it, I promise. And then there's kind of like this downward slope to the valley of despair. And imposter syndrome kicks in. I don't know what I'm doing. They're gonna fire me very soon. I realize all the things I don't know. And then you start to kind of like climb back up. And I think my talk is a little bit about how I probably should have accelerated this descent. And I probably stayed way too long somewhere over here, thinking how good I am and everything. So I think the rest of the talk is gonna be about that and sort of how to accelerate your development and get on the path up. So I took out, this is about a few-year-old email. I was talking with some recruiters, and it was for some reason after we got bought in IPOs. We got acquired before an IPO, and I was thinking about switching jobs because some things weren't making me too happy. And I was like freshly promoted to senior engineering manager or director, and I was looking for a new job, and the recruiter asked me for a CV. And I clearly remember when I was writing it one evening that I really wanted to put this sentence in. The English is for some reason really bad. I didn't even read it after myself, so I guess I really didn't want to switch jobs. But it says like, I still understand the details of the technical stack. You know, I'm still an engineer, I get them, I really understand them. And today I look at it and I read it and I'm like, that's my face right now. And the reason was because, in other words, what I was saying, I still don't fully understand what the role is about. I still kind of cling on to what I do well, what I really know well, and what I also love to do. But it's not really what's expected of me, and it's not what actually makes me good in the job I'm doing. Sorry, I hope I don't spill the water on the laptop.
2019-16 inch that you can get.
Oh, that's too big for me. So what I kind of like think is you can have a tendency to rely on your past accomplishments and technical authority within your current team. And it does work, but the problem is it won't work when you switch jobs. And for a tech company. I think we all are going to be soon looking for IT admins for internal IT for a good reason. I'll try to replug it. No signal. It's even worse than before. So, let's switch into stand-up comedy. Great. But it won't work in a new job. And imagine you're right now usually people tend to get promoted to an engineering position. And I think one of the points I want to make in the first part of the presentation, becoming a manager is not a promotion, it's a career change. And it actually works really well that you use your previous sort of technical authority with your existing team. And I think it's actually a really good way to kind of get on the track, but you should soon realize that your technical skills as an engineer, I'm not saying your technical skills overall, but the coding part especially of it, is a crutch, a bedlichka. It's like a word I'm not sure if everybody knows. And the whole point is you want to actually get rid of those as quickly as possible. And I think if you really do the mental exercise of imagine right now in your current role, you join another company, are you capable of basically building up a relationship with that team and explaining to that team that you bring value to them? You no longer have this, I know the architectural decisions made 5 years ago, you can ask me, I know that. And you really kind of like are left a little bit in a position where you have to rely on your management skills. And so it's obviously also one of the key questions I ask on interviews when interviewing engineering managers and directors, which we're trying to find. And that's, you're joining a new team. It's an organism that has a tendency to reject new people. And you're coming there, you might be relying on your past technical experience. What are going to be your first 3 months here? There's like very sort of standard answers, but it really tells you a lot about how the person thought about it. Obviously, it's my LinkedIn CV still. None of this is useful for me right now. None of it. None of it. technical recruiting, but I only have one endorsement for that. And learning to manage is a lot harder. So this is an engineer which turned into a manager and still clings on to his old stickers. Because I mean, I'm gonna simplify and really don't take me too literally. As an engineer, when you learn, you can take a new stack and you have this very quick code build test pipeline, which you can do alone at home. And you can test a new stack. There's nobody judgmental looking at you and telling you if you're doing a good job or not. But as a manager, it looks a little bit like this. I took it from the Radical Candor book, and it's a little bit about learn, listen, clarify, debate, decide, persuade, execute. The difference is all of these include people, and that takes an enormous amount of time. This is a meeting, this is a meeting, this is a meeting, this is a water cooler talk, this is a big email you need to draft. And so your sort of feedback loop when you're learning is a lot slower. And that's also one of the reasons why you really want to kind of take, as soon as possible, really start working on your skill set as a manager, because just intuitively trying to wing it is going to work for some time, especially in your current company, but it certainly will slow you down in the future if you want to grow as an engineering manager or director or VP. It applies. And many people get to a VP and they still kind of didn't get it. So it's possible. But I think they could be much more effective and much more successful if they think about it. So yeah, it's just a lot of talks and a lot of despair and a lot of being like really energized when you come home, but I can't stop thinking about it. And it's really also much harder just to kind of leave the company and leave the office with an empty head. So obviously, this kind of asks the question, how can you accelerate it? I'm gonna be maybe even a bit faster than I thought. I think my approach to that, and I think this is maybe what I want to also open here, is I am still wondering how Czech companies, and there's also foreign companies here, but how they think about the tech leader role. And this is also something interesting we might try to take to the discussion. And I think the first thing is, no matter how you think the engineering management role should look like, I think first you should diagnose. You should understand your organization and not going headfirst into something that is not compatible with your view. I think it's also kind of like a good self-diagnosis. Again, complete oversimplification. Is it an engineering job? Is it 100% people management? I was just talking today on an interview with a potential director, where he told me, it was like repeating very often, hey, this is super wrong, this is super wrong. But I think it's really good to think about it. Think about yourself, think about how your company looks like. And then also when you're going to try to be making changes to yourself, to the company, to maybe the managers that report to you, I think you should sort of not just like tell this number, but think about it in a complex way. What are your expectations from an engineering manager? So, and product board. This was one of the first exercises I tried to participate in after joining. And product board is special in a way that this is a very new thing in terms of growth for the company. And before everybody reported to Daniel, at around 20 people, you realize it's not a very sustainable way of doing things. Like eight. So, basically, their product board is also special in a way that a lot of these decisions are really drafted with the participation of people in the company. So there's like a big notion, a working draft document. What do we expect of an engineering manager? And we kind of like actually pivoted a little bit on the scale over here. And we tried that, or I wasn't there yet. I'm there for 3 months. And kind of like, but very much opened the discussion about how we think about it. What are the expectations? Because only if you set expectations on people, you can actually hold them accountable for them. And then we sort of made an iteration that it's actually, if you kind of go into full-fledged management, it's really hard to use those crutches that you know from being an engineer or being a senior engineer. So we dialed it back a little bit and actually explicitly said that, so we kind of make that position easier to achieve or reach or be happy in it, I think also very importantly. And if I go quickly through the expectations we have for the engineering managers, I think it's primarily goal setting and rallying the team behind the objectives. And the manager is responsible for having that, but of course he needs product managers to help him with that. He can't do that on his own. But in the end, if the team doesn't know what their objectives are, problem with the manager. About staffing, it's something that the Manager should have a target headcount. He should know how big his team should be. What are the skills needed in there? The headcount's not there. His problem. He might not be sourcing people on LinkedIn, but he has to be in constant dialogue with people who can help him with that. It's also about, then there was this sort of conflict point about technical guidance or coding. What is your technical involvement? I found my way out of it by saying that the engineering manager is responsible for technical guidance and alignment. If the team is thinking about a decision too long, he has the power to drive it to a decision. He should not be like a sole authoritarian decision maker. It doesn't work well. If it does, I would maybe even say, okay, it's something you should be responsible for. It's up to you how you achieve it, but I would probably advise against it. But it's not something that the person has to be an active coder. And I have one more, which I'm trying to recall right now. And the most important one, take care of the people. And it's really having also a very personal, or not a very personal, but a very caring relationship towards the people in the team and understand what's driving them, what's motivating them, and also kind of helping them grow. Understanding also that, especially as people grow in seniority, he should basically start to take steps back, but especially in early careers of people, being there as much as possible. So that was our sort of diagnosis. I think it's going to still go through an iteration, but I find it really helpful to very openly talk about it within the company, sort of to set the expectation, not just for the managers, but also for the people, so they can hold their managers accountable to those expectations. I think understanding your own motivation is just a reminder that I do realize in my career and just kind of replaying things I did, when I did it because I like to do it, and when I did it because I was supposed to do it. So also, I think one thing I found really refreshing after joining Product Board is that the first iteration was very open, try out the position, and sort of like very welcoming. And it's also okay if you realize that you're much more happy as an individual contributor, as an engineer. Your value is going to be so much bigger there because it's something you love to do. And I think it's just like kind of humble up and start studying management as a hard skill. And this was my sort of approach to self-improvement books. It's just like something completely useless, and it's just ballast, which you do to validate yourself. But I found over time, for example, 3 books that I read every year, and every year I sort of take away a little bit more from them. And I kind of reflect on the decisions I made, on the talks I had, and on all sorts of things I experienced. And I really try to actively think about how to move myself forward. And also, I think one of the things that I found in this role is that it's a bit lonelier. In some bigger companies, you might have peers in the same position, but very often you don't have as many as you had in engineering. And it's also kind of, the whole conversation is a bit loaded with like, if I acknowledge that I'm not doing too well, people will find weakness in it or something. And so if you can do it within a company and open like a management reading club or something, it's a great approach. If you feel, the company's not inclined to do that, there's great ways to do that. For example, for us, for engineers, we actually, part of the package you get is mentoring. We use a SaaS service which connects you with Silicon Valley engineering managers and from all across the globe, which are one level higher than you. And you can basically share your problems with them and get their expertise on the topics and they already had that head start. Coaching is also part of the package, which a coach is different from a mentor in the sense that your coach might not know anything about engineering at all, about tech companies at all. But you can discuss your management itself and the things you do, and they can help you get better in that. I've also, for example, had a great, might be a sort of invite, I'll try to kick off something here, discussion groups. For example, in Berlin, we had a mailing list, like a sort of engineering director mailing list, and people just randomly share things there. And it started to be like a super useful resource. It was inspired by the CTO I used to report to in Foodpanda. And I think all of these things really have a great return on investment. And also, if you have managers under yourself, you really should start thinking structurally about what you have to offer to them. So this is a bit more an invite, and I realized that if there are so many people interested in this topic, I would almost love to make this some sort of continuing format And it's really also up to you kind of to give us feedback about what's really interesting for you. So this was my establishing of common ground, and I'm really happy to move this forward and talk about it a lot more. That's it. No questions, actually. Sorry, I shouldn't put that there.